Perfect. So I think we can get started. Good morning again. I'm Jürgen Pilot, Program Manager with the National Offshore Wind Research and Development Consortium. Wanted to take some time today for a quick webinar responding to frequently asked questions that we've received for our Open Innovations in Offshore Wind Solicitation 2.0. As a reminder for everybody, concept papers are due September 16th. And throughout this, I do want to point everybody to the main solicitation webpage, which is nationaloffshorewind.org/solicitations. The goal here is to first respond to a few recurring questions about the solicitation that we've received to date by email. But once we get through those, the intent is to do a live response to any questions that the audience may have. So if you do have a question that you would like answered in this session, please enter it in either the chat or the Q&A box, and we can respond to that after we get through the couple of questions here that we have prepared. I'll note that this webinar is being recorded. We intend to post the recording after the webinar, and we'll also send out a link to written responses to the questions that we have received, plus any questions that we receive here, and we'll send those in a follow-up email. So without further ado, we can just jump right into the couple of questions that we've received. And again, if you guys have questions, feel free to add them in the chat. The first question that we've received is whether concept papers are going to be scored using the same rubric as the full proposals. Yes, they will share a common rubric. It will be exactly the same for concept papers and full proposal submissions. We received a second question about whether letters of support or commitment should be submitted at the concept paper stage. The answer to that question is no. Concept papers should be self-contained within the concept paper template. External stakeholders should be described in section 7, which relates to the project team in that concept paper, but we do not expect anything appended to that concept paper template. We had another question about how set in stone the budget is in the concept paper versus the full proposal submission. The concept paper budget should align very closely with the full proposal submission budget. So that is the expectation. One other question we have is about the statement that proposers may only submit 3 proposals as a prime applicant in any single consortium solicitation round. The question is if that means that proposers are limited to 3 prime proposals at the concept paper stage, or whether that guidance applies to the full proposal stage or both. Proposers may submit up to 3 unique proposals as a prime applicant, provided that each proposal concerns a separate and distinct topic. There are no such limitations for project partners or subawardees, but the guidance does apply to both concept paper and full proposal submissions. So proposers may submit up to 3 concept papers as a prime, provided that each concept paper concerns a separate and distinct topic. If that awardee does receive a full proposal invite for any of those 3 concept papers, or all of those 3 concept papers, they can then submit the corresponding full proposal. The final prepared question that we have has to do with challenge area 2 under the open solicitation. It's noted that the challenge area seems heavily focused on specific instrumentation applications. And there's a question as to whether this proposer who's interested in ascertaining the interest or need for a more broad-based foundational study to address the need to optimize the entire offshore wind plant instrumentation would be responsive. Generally, we don't want to provide too much guidance around what is and is not applicable to make sure that it's an even playing field, but I will offer the clarification that round 1 challenge area 2 seeks technologies or strategies that more effectively quantify the general condition or extent of damage to at-sea assets or systems, or can be used to inform the prevention or minimization of damage or failures to at-sea assets and systems. Generally speaking, what we're looking for is tools or strategies that are going to yield the information or data that's required to assess asset condition or inform O&M strategy. It's really about enabling that info or data collection. So those are the questions that we had prepared. At this time, I'm more than happy to respond to questions that the audience may have. So I will stand by for a couple of minutes and respond to questions as they may come through. Okay, so it looks like we do have some questions about the location of solicitation materials. As I mentioned at the start of the webinar, they're at nationaloffshorewind.org/solicitations. If you go to that webpage, you're going to see a page with a rubric. Beneath the rubric, it states that the solicitation will be managed using the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority Salesforce portal. That text is hyperlinked. And if you click that text, it will take you right to the NYSERDA webpage at which all the solicitation documents and templates are hosted. We have a question about if a solution applies to more than one challenge area, can you submit the same POC proposal for both challenge areas? The recommendation here or the guidance is that you decide what the best fit is and submit in that challenge area. We have a question about how many full proposals will be invited in each challenge area. That is entirely dependent on the quantity of proposals that we receive and how they score. We have a threshold score above which proposers will receive a full proposal invitation. We have a question about whether the consortium will post FAQs and today's answers online. Yes, we will do that after the webinar here this morning. I'll post a live recording of this video along with a web page with written response to the FAQ, including those questions that we received in the live session today. We have a question about the max fund available for each proposal. So in the solicitation documentation, there's 3 funding categories. We have feasibility studies, which can be funded for up to $300,000. We have product development, which can receive funding for up to $800,000, or we have product demonstration, which can receive funding of up to, I believe, $1.2 million. So the max for any one funding category is $1.2 million. That would be product development, or you can do a multi-phase proposal. So say a combination of feasibility study and product development, which would be $300,000, $800,000 respectively, for a total of $1.1 million. Or you could do the same for BC or ABC. So you can kind of extract the maximum funding amount for multi-phase proposals in that way. We have a question about whether the scope of work has to include industry participation or government labs. There is no such requirement. What we would like to see is proposers build the strongest team for their given proposal application. So we leave it at your discretion as to what that entails. We have a question about whether this solicitation is open to EU companies or only US. So this is a nationally focused consortium. We don't have any limitations on proposal submissions by companies based outside of the US, although the focus absolutely has to be to advance the state of US domestic offshore wind. I will share that any proposals funded in part by the Department of Energy, as all of our proposals are subject to foreign work waivers. So there is a longer approval process and some inherent uncertainty associated with that, although there are no hard and fast rules on who can propose versus who cannot based on nationality. We have a question about the geographic scope of the solicitation. It is nationwide, specifically the 5 geographic areas highlighted in our research and development roadmap, which you can find on our website. And it's also reiterated in the solicitation summary. So it looks like the questions have tapered a little bit. What I'll do is I'll go off video. I'll stand by for another 5 minutes. Oh, no, looks like we do have some more. Do we have an idea about approximate dates for round 2? Not yet. This is all kind of TBD. We plan to further define the challenge areas in the second half of this year. The solicitation does provide some placeholder dates for the concept paper submissions and the full proposal submissions, which you can refer to in the solicitation text. Although, given how far out that is, it is all subject to change. Any other questions from anyone? Can you type the link here? Sure. That should do it. And again, once you get to that web page, there's going to be a rubric or a matrix in the middle with the challenge areas. Beneath that, there's a link to the NYSERDA web page. It's actually hyperlinked text that will take you to the NYSERDA Salesforce page at which all the document templates are hosted. Okay, looks like we got a question in the Q&A. Is this open to wind energy startups in their early stages of development? The proposal or the solicitation is open to any entity provided their proposal is responsive to the challenge areas as defined in the summary document. I should also clarify that this is project funding rather than company funding. Mark, it says that you can't see the link. Go ahead and copy paste it into your email browser or your web browser. It should work. Apologies, I sent it the wrong group. Let me know if that's better. We have a question from an anonymous attendee about round 1, challenge area 1. It is whether bidders can propose improvements to existing turbine foundation designs or improvements, or if it should be limited to studies about existing systems. So the goal, of course, in challenge area 1 is about supply chain and industrialization. We don't want to provide too much guidance about what would and would not be responsive specifically, but I would encourage you to review the text carefully and see what is not specifically excluded from the description. We have another question about whether it's possible to submit a proposal that spans multiple challenge areas. Given the nature of our challenge areas, it's likely that many proposals will have at least some applicability to more than one. The guidance that I previously shared is that you kind of pick the best fit challenge area and submit your proposal under that category. So we have a question about how much confidentiality will be maintained for novel innovations. For any proposal submissions, either concept papers or full proposals, our external subject matter expert scores are all bound by NDA to protect the information that they're witness to as a part of the scoring process. So no worries in the scoring or scoring process for concept papers or full submissions. During the actual project term, if you do receive an award, we require that proposers clearly label all documentation provided in such a way that the consortium can protect novel IP or confidential documents in accordance with what the proposer feels is important to protect their IP. I will add too that there are certain deliverables that are required in the standard statement of work template, like the final report, that will have to be public, but they do not need to include, all the data that's referenced to draw conclusions throughout the project term. So I would encourage you to refer to the statement of work template for a little bit more information on what project deliverables under any award are inherently bound to be publicly available. But otherwise know that the consortium works with awardees to make sure that IP sensitive or confidential information is handled in accordance with how the company would prefer to be treated. We have a question about whether you need to be a member to submit a proposal. No, you do not. There is a question about whether all challenge areas are going to be funded, or if there are no good proposals in one area, is the funding going to roll into another challenge area? The answer to that question is it's kind of all at the consortium's discretion, and that decision will be made based on the scores of the proposals received in each challenge area. We have a question about external subject matter expert neutrality. For example, if a proposal is made that leapfrogs existing technology, how do we know that subject matter experts will score objectively and not punitively? So the consortium works very closely with Department of Energy and the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, two entities that are extremely well versed in selecting subject matter experts. They've provided a lot of guidance in our development of our own internal process. We feel extremely confident that we're taking the requisite steps to make sure that our subject matter experts are scoring things objectively and not based on their own interests or biases. All right, I think I've responded to everything that we've received. If you got one more question, will a transcript or recording of this webinar be published? Yes, we're going to post a recording of this webinar as well as a written FAQ document that captures both the questions that we've received via email and the questions that we've answered live in this webinar. So everybody who received the initial invite will also receive a link to both of those items. We have a question about when you click apply online, it states that it's blocked. A reason for this may be firewall. I know that I did try it this morning. It worked on my machine, and I know that other folks have had some success. So if you're on a corporate network, I might check with your IT department. All right. Well, all right, we got a partial question here. Stay tuned for the second half. I can generally respond that yeah, we can't share anything beyond what is shared in the actual solicitation summary document. It's obviously the case that the roadmap is much more comprehensive about the various challenges facing U.S. offshore wind. The solicitation is intended to select specific challenge areas that are prioritized by our membership at any given time and address those particular portions of the larger roadmap. So that's what we're doing here. The summary doc is not intended to capture everything that is in the R&D roadmap document. Thanks, Gary. All right. I think we've got a lot of in response to Yakin Liu, no, you cannot assume that. What is in the solicitation clearly states what proposals will be responsive. Anything that is not captured under those challenge areas is non-responsive, regardless of this the roadmap content. With that, I think we've gotten a chance to respond to a number of good questions. Really appreciate everybody joining. Really looking forward to seeing responses when the time comes. Again, concept papers are going to be due September 16th. Later today, we will post the live recording of the session along with a link to the written FAQ webpage that we're going to be making. And hope everybody has a wonderful day and rest of their week. Take care.